In this lesson, we're going to start solving one-step equations. We'll do this using the addition and subtraction properties of equality. The addition property of equality says that if A equals B, you can add some quantity, like C or any other number, to both sides of the equation and the equation will still be true. So here we have the equation A equals B. Let's go ahead and find numbers for A and B. So we'll say A equals 5, and since it tells us here that those two, A and B, are equal, we're going to say B also equals 5. Now the second part tells us that if we add C to both sides, which is what the addition property of equality tells us, you'll get the two sides of the equation will still be equal. Let's say that C is equal to 3. So we start out with A equals B, which gives us 5 equals 5, which is true. Now we're being told that we need to add C to both sides. So we'll say 5 plus C equals 5 plus C. So you can already tell that these are equal, but if you want to go ahead and substitute C in as well, you can, to get 8 equals 8. So we know that this is true. If you add the same quantity to both sides of an equation, the equation is still true. Let's try an example with real numbers in a real equation. How about this one right here? We have x minus 32 equals negative 15. So the first step for any sort of equation like this is to get the variable on its own. You always want to get the variable alone by itself on one side. Okay. In order to do that, that means we have to somehow get rid of this minus 32. If we were to go ahead and have x minus 32 and then add 32 to this side, these two values would cancel each other out because minus 32 plus 32 is equal to 0, so they would no longer exist and you have x by itself. So then you would have x equals negative 15, and since you added 32 to this side, we also have to add 32 to this side, because that's what our addition property of equality tells us. So now we don't have this section anymore, so we have x equals negative 15 plus 32, and that says x equals 17. And that's your final answer. That can be a little confusing the first time you see it. So we're going to do more examples after we cover the subtraction property of equality. The subtraction property of equality says a similar thing, and it says if A equals B, then you can subtract some number or some quantity like C from both sides of the equation and the equation will still be true. So just like before we have A equals B, we can use the same numbers for A and B, so A equals 5, which also equals B, so we start out with 5 equals 5, which is A equals B, and then you can subtract some number from both sides and it'll be the same. Let's say C is equal to 2. So we can do minus 2 from this side and minus 2 from this side. 5 minus 2 is 3, and 5 minus 2 is 3. So we know that the subtraction property of equality works too. In this example we have solve negative 16 equals x minus a negative 7. So we want to get our x variable alone. Remember, that's the first step of solving any sort of equation, is to work on getting that x value by itself. Let's go ahead and simplify this side so it seems a little easy for us. So we want to get rid of this minus negative 7, but remember that two negatives equals a positive. So if we have minus a negative 7, we can turn that into plus 7, because two negatives equal a positive. So now we have negative 16 equals x plus 7. All we need to get rid of now is this plus 7. In order to do that, you can subtract 7 from each side. You have to subtract 7 because you have plus 7 and minus 7, so plus 7 minus 7 is equal to 0. So then you just get x on this side, and you have negative 16 minus 7, which is negative 23. Now we'll practice with these examples here. Go ahead and pause your video and try them on your own if you feel confident. If you don't, then watch me do a couple problems, then pause your video and try to do the last two problems by yourself. Remember that your goal for these problems is to get x alone on one side. So that's what we're working towards here. In this first problem, we have negative 15 equals x plus 9. So you want to get rid of this plus 9, and since it's an added, you're adding 9 to x, the only way to get rid of it is to subtract 9 from each side. So we'll subtract 9 from here, subtract 9 from here. Remember, you have to do it to both sides, and you have to make sure that your symbol is the same. So if you're subtracting 9 on the right, you have to subtract 9 on the left. You have to do the exact same thing to both sides. So we get just x over here, because plus 9 minus 9 is equal to 0, and then you have negative 15 minus 9, which is negative 24. Next we have p minus 6 equals 0. On this side we have nothing, but that doesn't matter because we're still trying to solve for p and get p by itself. So in order to get p by itself, we have to get rid of this negative 6. And the way to get rid of negative 6 is to add 6. So p minus 6 plus 6 would equal just p. So we will add 6 to each side. So we get p equals 0 plus 6. 0 plus 6 is just 6. So p equals 6. For our next one, we have 9 equals y minus negative 1 plus 7. So if you haven't paused the video at this point and tried some on your own, now would be a good time. So for this one, we want to actually simplify everything on this side first to make it a little bit easier. So we're going to say 9 equals y, remember 2 negatives, so minus negative 1 becomes a positive. 2 negatives equal a positive, so it becomes y plus 1 plus 7. We can simplify that a little bit more, and we can have 9 equals y. We can add 1 and 7, plus 1 plus 7 is 8. And now we have something that we can easily get our y by ourselves. Remember that we can add 1 and 7 here before doing any of the other operations in that line because of the commutative and associative properties of addition, which allow you to move the numbers around and say that even if you add these two numbers before this y over here, you're still going to have the same sum on that side. Okay, so now we need to get rid of this positive 8, so we have just y on that side. So in order to get rid of an 8, we need to subtract 8 from both sides. So we get, just moving this over here, we get y equals, because these two cancel each other out, 9 minus 8, and 9 minus 8 is equal to 1. Okay, and our last example, we have z plus 4 equals negative 11. So our goal is to get our variable alone, which is this z. We have plus 4 on this side, minus 11 on the other side, but we need to get rid of this plus 4. So we're going to subtract 4, because plus 4 minus 4 would equal 0, which would give you just z on this side. And since you subtracted 4 from the left side, you also have to subtract 4 from the right side. So that gives you negative 15. If these properties are still confusing to you, go ahead and watch some of these again to help clear it up.